So were you aware that this interministerial committee had been appointed or established by the President to coordinate this effort of addressing the political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, that interministerial committee being the Minister of Police then at the time, who would have been Minister Pele, and the other ministers of intelligence, state security agency, defense, justice and constitutional development. Those in defense, they in that cluster. Were you aware of that, or did you become aware of that committee?
Yes, I became aware that there was an interministerial task team that was established as an intervention by the President in 2018, and he established that. What I then came to know later is that the intervention, the political intervention by the President, especially after one incident or at the time of one of the incidents, in case that the President directed or commanded that there must be a mechanism to respond to the problem, and appointed the interministerial task team or interministerial committee, who were tasked with that particular task of developing or establishing a mechanism to respond to the call at that time. And they then established a second tier, which was a steering committee, which I would imagine they established a third tier at an operational foundational level of people who would operate, and that was under a lieutenant general who was deputy national commissioner at that time. So the intervention that the President wanted to see and finally saw was a kind of a three-tier kind of intervention when it was completed and it started operating as it started, and then got to be known as the National Political Killings Task Team. So it referred to that kind of three-tier, each one clearly identified interministerial, and then the second tier being the steering, and then the operational one right on the ground of people who were operatives. So that was a complete mechanism that the President set up to deal with that incident of Mr. Makata, Mkhwanazi, and other matters that got referred to them later, but it was in direct response to that particular incident, among others that had happened just before that one. And it was a concern to the President. That is what then happened, which would then be assessed or evaluated from time to time to look at impact and other aspects thereof.
Now, you mentioned that must one accept that you were briefed on this, on how the team was, or the unit, I think. Would you prefer to call it a unit?
I prefer to.
Would you prefer to call the task team a unit?
No. I actually must express a worry that when Major General Van Rooyen was called, I think, to the Nhlanhla Commission, and she was asked a specific question: is there a difference between a unit and a team, task team? she, to the best of my collection, said there's no difference. I got very worried because throughout the orientation and so on, up to when I was given leave, there's always been a clear distinction between a task team and the unit. And as a practice in subs, the units become part of the organogram. And that includes that unit that was Katomena task team. I can't remember the exact term that they used, but that one was a unit, meaning it was part of the organogram. But this one, the political task team, has never been part of the organogram, including when we dealt with the organogram under my leadership after I got appointed, because under my leadership, what we did is we took the strategic plan and the annual plan, we started that, and we came together to say, what is the meaning of this in relation to this, the organizational structure, the current one of subs? And we reviewed that. We went to a thorough process of reviewing the organizational structure with a view to aligning it with the strategic plan of the department, following the imperatives of the 6th or 7th administration with its 3 priorities. We had a thorough discussion.
When would that have been?
I may have dates here when we had there would be various dates, but all I know is that in May this year, there's been a signing off of the new organogram that we started discussing last year. And it took months before we could complete it and make it ready to go to negotiations. But it has been signed off this year. And so that kind of process that we went to.
So can I just help us understand, Minister? So what appears on an organogram is the word unit. No words like task teams are on the organogram.
There isn't.
And if a unit is called a task team, then what is the status of this task team if it doesn't appear on the organogram? Is it an unofficial unit? Is it a rogue unit? How would you describe
a unit?
Yes.
Yes, a unit would be deliberately established as part of the organogram for a particular purpose. But it would be, as I have observed up to now, it would be on a sustainable basis. In other words, it would be envisaged as a long-term kind of an arrangement. Some of these units have been there for quite a long time, and that has been the practice. But at the same time, task teams have been established from time to time at various levels. I suppose that even at a district level, a district commissioner would observe a particular problem in their area of jurisdiction, and they would say, we need a particular task team to deal with that particular problem, and of 3 people or 4 people and so on, and they would be allocated some resources and they would deal with it. At provincial level, they would do the same, establish a task team for a particular purpose with a specific time frame, specific allocation of resources, and it would be gone into. Once the mission has been accomplished, they would then withdraw members. Remember, when you establish a task team, you don't all of a sudden appoint people from outside. You pick up people from within that particular area as you choose as they may be suitable in terms of their expertise for a particular purpose. And then you draft them in as part of that particular task team. And as soon as the mission has been accomplished, you then get them back so that they continue to play their role where they come from. You don't open up a gap on a permanent basis because it will cause confusion. Say, for instance, in a province, if you suddenly see the need to establish 8 task teams for a particular reason, it would mean that you would need to call a number of people from the and who you wouldn't be able to replace for the duration of that particular. So that's why it is always necessary that once you are done with the mission, you withdraw people. They don't ask you where to go. They go back to where they are ordinarily appointed. So that has been the practice, well established in SAPS.
So can we accept then, from what you're saying, that a task team won't appear on organizational structure or what is called an organogram because it is appointed to perform a specific task? And in this case, the president appointed this interministerial committee to establish a task team to deal with political killings, specifically in KZN.
And he made that task team be chaired by the Minister of Police, who would then perform administrative duties of the interministerial committee in terms of agendas for meetings, discussion, and all of those as Minister of Police. And everybody was aware that this is a task team. In fact, throughout government, in my experience, outlined before, once you mention task team in the country, 2 things jump up in your mind. One is that you are going to pool a number of people with skills that are relevant for what needs to be done. Like in a disaster, you put up a task team. You pull up people that are going to be relevant in dealing with that particular task that has been identified in a particular area for that particular time. But it is always an element of a time frame. You don't establish a task team but on a permanent basis. If you do, it's rare. It would be peculiar, but ordinarily, a task team has a date of starting, date of ending, pool resources, you pull people back to where they belong. So this particular task team was established as such, as a task team. And this task would be evaluated from time to time and assessed whether it would still be needed as time went on, as it happened. Okay. That's the practice.
Yeah. So on what you are saying, Minister, so once this task, this job, same thing. You've got a job to do.
Yes.
You've got a job to do, and once your job is completed, thank you very much. The job is completed, and we don't need you anymore. So in this case, who would have determined or decided that the task has been performed and the team can now be disbanded?
Let me just make one example to respond to you. On the 2014 to 16 task team that was in KZN, it wasn't established by the president. It wasn't. It was internal to SAPS, and the minister would have started that one, possibly using his powers in terms of Section 207, where his tasks are identified clearly. So he establishes that and picks up people from this and that unit from that police station and so on. When it was time, when this one of 2018 got established, the way this one of 2014 to 16 was 2016 to 18, the way it was disestablished, when the discussions took off and matured of the National Political Task Team, people got informed that there is now a new direction and we're setting up a new one and so on. So there wouldn't have been a formal disbandment beyond telling people that we no longer have this one, we have this one. But as per whatever the minister would have directed, in this instance, the president intervened, and I call it political intervention, because before the president established the interministerial task team and directed them in a particular way, there was no such. There was no such. And then the interministerial task team gets to discuss and put together ideas. What form is it going to take? What is it going to do? And so on. And they put in all the ideas as they did. Still, ministers, and the chair is a minister. And it goes on with the work. What happened in the new administration, the 7th administration, there's no interministerial task team in this regard. There isn't. Minister of Police can't establish an interministerial task team. It can only be the president and cabinet. So you land in that situation. Okay, you start working, you continue working. And then at a particular time, considering a number of factors, which I will go into if you give me time, then you take a particular decision.
So before we go...
Quite aware of that because as the name says or suggests, IMC, that is interministerial. They get brought together to work together and establish a mechanism in the way they did, as per their discussions, a mechanism, and it was two-tiered. They pull in other officials from relevant departments.
Yeah, so
in the steering committee, and then thereafter
the interministerial committee,
yes,
formed of different ministers, would then provide expertise, resources from
yes,
various departments to form a multidisciplinary team.
Yes.
And it would also involve the working with the NPA, so it was directed by a prosecutor.
Yes, and police from
yes,
outside KZN.
And this formed part of a presentation that was done to the interministerial task team. Are you aware of that? And General Mkhwanazi was instrumental in making such a presentation. I think at the time, General Satoli was the National Commissioner.
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Yes, he was. It was him at that time.
But are you aware of the presentation that was done? Were you aware of the role that General Mkhwanazi played in the formation of this task team?
Yes, I'm aware. And I'm also aware of what other role players played, because it was not a one-man show. It was yes, it was the interministerial task team giving a team of officials a task, which they came back to present to them. It was always a group of people.
In fact, if just for the record, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, if I may refer you to bundle 3 of the exhibit bundle.
This one.
The exhibit bundle, yeah.
Yes.
You got it?
Yes.
Item 1.
Yes.
Item 1 of the exhibit bundle, EB1, pages 1 to 10.
So what page specifically?
And you'll see from page, you've got it, the Minister? Exhibit bundle 3.
That one. Yes.
Okay. You'll see at page 1, this is an information note. And the heading is Implementation Plan. Investigation of political related KwaZulu Natal cases, KwaZulu Natal from 1 July 2018 to 31 December 2018.
Yeah, I see that. That's page 2.
Okay. It is.
That's page 2 above.
And on page 10,
Okay.
you'll see at the bottom, it is dated 18 June 2018.
Yes, I see that.
And you'll see this plan was approved by then National Commissioner Sithole.
Yes, I see that.
And that looks like his signature or is his signature. And you'll see that this note was compiled by Brigadier Khumalo.
Yes, above.
That's right at the bottom. And it's verified by Lieutenant General N.S. Mkhwanazi.
Yes, I see that.
So they played quite a prominent role in that, and the information note when did you first have sight of this note? Or is this the first time that you have sight of this note, or when we made it available to your lawyers? And it's also referenced in the, sorry, maybe I should have just confirmed this with you also. We did make available to you and your lawyers the Mkhwanazi statement with the annexures that was before Nhlanhla, and the Masemola statement and annexures. Yeah. So you would have seen that. So this note, when was the first time you saw this note?
To see this note?
Yeah, that I've just referred you to.
No, I've just seen it.
So you hadn't seen it before?
This very one?
Yeah,
no.
Here's the one that I've just made reference to. The one that was approved by by the National Commissioner on the 18th of June 2018.
Yes, I see it, and I've seen it before.
Because this task team is now going to report to Mkhwanazi and Khumalo, and ultimately the National Commissioner. What is your understanding?
Now, the first understanding that I've had or developed throughout as I familiarized myself with this is that this is what the president envisaged when he made the decision to intervene in the situation in KZN, establish a mechanism. But he himself establishes an interministerial task team. Go and work, go and do, but this is what I want to see, so that we combat the problem. Then they go and have a discussion, and they give themselves tasks And the key things is to establish structures. They establish a structure, two structures below them, managerial, the other one much more operational on the ground, and they do that. So it is multi-tier as it happened. So when you ask me what who composed, it's all the people that were seen to be relevant, starting with ministers, relevant ministers, and then the next tier, relevant people and departments, and the province. Hence, you see General Mkhwanazi signing all of that because it's in KwaZulu Natal. He's provincial commissioner. He lays the platform. He avails the platform where this mechanism will operate, and he needs to support. He needs to be active, and you would see that when you run the other units on illegal mining, for instance, when it happens in Northwest, you go there, the central person there would be the provincial commissioner, even though there are people above him, as is happening, because it's under this poll and so on. So you go there, all of you, but the person who provide the platforms, the provincial commissioner, and is involved. And so even though it's not a provincial kind of an instrument or structure, but because it is in that province, it gets recognized, he gets encouraged to play a role, a conducive role, an enabling role, so that all other players are able to move. And when they move out, they are able to say, we leave a person who's providing a platform actively, and in this instance is General Mkhwanazi. And it works like that. And they therefore established it like this.
But Minister, didn't it work like this according to this plan? There was the initiative from the president, the formation of the establishment of the interministerial committee. Importantly, because you don't want to operate in silos anymore. You want to have a coordinated approach. So justice is involved, and the NPA is made available to assist, appoint a prosecutor dedicated to this task. So all of them are dedicated from various, whether it's from the State Security Agency to provide intelligence, defense to provide some or other assistance. All of them are there. That's why they form this team. But the team that now is established by Mkhwanazi, led by Khumalo, they must now begin to operate. Surely they operate in accordance with the instructions of either Mkhwanazi, Khumalo, or the National Commissioner, who at the time was Sithole. They don't operate according to the instructions of the Interministerial Committee. Well, how do you understand it? Because this is signed off, it's approved, the funding is approved. Or let me start with this question or proposition, that do you accept that this task team that was established certainly for this period from 1 July 2018 to 31 December 2018 conforms to the law? It's a lawfully established task team.
Yes.
In fact, approved by the Interministerial Committee.
Yes.
Of which the Minister of Police is
and functioning under their direction.
Yeah. Let us understand that, because that seems to be your case, isn't it? We're going to get there when we debate the directive. here we have a plan that's been set out, how it's going to be monitored and evaluated and implemented. But on the ground and how they operate, those instructions are given, as I mentioned, according to this plan, by Mkhwanazi or Khumalo or by the National Commissioner, surely not by any of the ministers. Do you accept that?
No, look, Chair, when the president intervenes, as he did at that time, he thereafter, once he had directed, as part of his directive, the group of ministers to develop a mechanism, there's no way you can divorce him and say he can now go to London and have a holiday. That was not the case. He had expectations that things would roll out the way he had envisaged. So he becomes and stays part of it, but not operational. But that is his intervention. Then he leaves the interministerial task team. Then they work. Now he's not part of them. He's not minister. He's not with them. He's sitting in his office doing other things. They come and bring reports, but they are working there. Now, you're not going to say they are separate from his command to a point where he has nothing to do with that. Now, what do the interministerial do? They discuss how do we roll out the mechanism as instructed by the president. They then say the best way of doing this, get prosecution, get skills in terms of detectives, get people from outside. They discuss actively. Once they agree.
In fact, Minister, just to interpose, and in fairness, yes, to you, the presentation that was initially made by the then acting provincial commissioner of KZN, that did have the effect of persuading the interministerial committee that approach at the time was not the right approach. And it wasn't producing the desired results. So they were instrumental in saying no, and this new multidisciplinary approach should that's fair comment, I think.
Yes. So once the interministerial committee have conceptualized this thing, of course discussing with everybody at officials level, in other words, officers, they then leave. They say, you do as discussed, this is the resolution and so on. And they start implementing. The people who implement are not necessarily the politicians, but they establish, they direct, they give directives to say, this is how it should happen. And these ones operationalize it, and they become, they bring it into this, they manage it. In other words, it becomes managerial when it gets to implementation, but you can't divorce. As I talked, I spoke about 3 tiers, and maybe even 4 tiers if you count the president. And so managerially, they then implement as you see them. So this is at management level. Even them, General Khumalo, General Mkhwanazi, would leave certain people, either groups of them coordinated at a particular level. They wouldn't run around with every task of the task team. They wouldn't, for instance, be involved personally on all the investigations, on all the collective collection, on the arrests and so on. They are managing, but there are those who run the actual errands. That is another tier of people. So that's my understanding.
Now,